Welcome, everybody. I'm Bill McCarren, Executive Director of Voices Unbound, and we're here today on the 14th anniversary of the abduction of journalist Austin Tice in conversation with Debra Tice, his mom. And we're going to lay out what's been happening since we last spoke publicly. The Tice kids had an event on World Press Freedom Day where they discuss priorities. We want to look at what's happened with those priorities and what we hope happens in the future, and just share some thoughts with Debra. So Debra, Austin has been held now 14 years. It's hard to believe. And I want to just share with everybody that Debra and I talked on the phone earlier this week, and it was Austin's birthday. And she referred to it several times as a joyous occasion and one of the best days of her life. So I appreciate that. And I wanted to just give you a chance, Debra, to say, if you want, anything on your mind about Austin's birthday, about this date, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, when I think about Austin's birthday, that is the day that I became a mother holding in my hand my first child. And for the rest of my life, I would be a mother. And that day is just the day. And then, of course, I had six more, so I had seven children, seven being the number of completion. And so we have to have Austin because we are seven, and you know, we need that space filled with him. Um, So I just always think of it that way it was a day that changed my life. I mean, he'd be in me, right? But I hadn't met him.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So it's a very, very special day. Yeah.
And for people who don't know, yeah, all moms have a special mission. And this mom, though, Debra, she was also their teacher. So she homeschooled these kids, including Austin, and they've all gone on to do amazing things, as you know, if you heard their presentation in April. They're really thoughtful, well-spoken, kind children, and they just want their brother home, right? So that's why we're here today, is to discuss that. So it's 14 years, and Austin is the longest held journalist in history, U.S. journalist, and he's the only U.S. journalist currently being held overseas. And so, you would think because of all of that, and he's a Marine journalist, you would think he was be a huge priority for the U.S. government, and that they would be working sort of around the clock, to help bring him home and developing great strategies. And there are some really dedicated uh, people in government that both Deborah and I know that feel that way about Austin and really give their heart to the work. But in general, we're not satisfied with the strategies of the government. And we laid out in April what we wanted them to be considering and pursuing. And we're going to look at what's happened since then and make some more suggestions, for today. Because certainly on all hostage cases, the bottom line is he is not home, and he is not home for the longest possible time. And so redoubling efforts is what's required now. And I'll just say one more thing, is that it's really encouraging to watch some of the news where we see the US government bringing home a woman who was in prison in Iran just in the last month. We see the U.S. government just yesterday able to bring home a former Marine from Russia just yesterday. So these are hard countries to work in, and they're doing good work and getting good results. We just need the focus to be on this case, and it's very much not, is the way that we view things. So I wanted to just ask you, Deborah, a couple questions. Um, we are, as we said, now 14 years in. Um, what are your feelings about the U.S. government's priorities, and what are you thinking you'd like to see them doing?
Um, I would like to see them doing something. That would be good. I'm not really seeing the government doing things. Um, you know, I when I see like Adam Bowler, what is he doing for Austin? Is he doing something to bring Austin home? Uh, so that's what I would like to see. And I would also like to see, if we're thinking about Austin being in Syria, do we have people in Syria? Well, no, because we don't have an embassy in Syria. And so it's difficult sometimes for them to just go in.
Yeah, I mean that's a great it's a great point. Um, I mentioned the successes our government has had, and I'm going to mention another country, Germany, which had great success 2 months ago, bringing home a journalist who had been held for 5 months in Syria. And they have an embassy. The Germans have an embassy in Damascus, and that embassy worked day and night trying to locate her, which is not easy. She had been moved to five, I believe, different facilities in 5 months. And they were able to locate her and negotiate her release, even though she was a journalist, and bring her home. And so we're talking to the German Foreign Ministry. We're trying to get access to this person to see, did she meet anyone in prison um, that might have run across Austin or seen Austin or heard something about Austin. And I must tell you that as we're trying to do this work, I am not finding the US government there before me or next to me. Why are they not doing the most obvious things? I've also asked the German Foreign Ministry for access to the embassy so we can debrief the people that had the success finding this person and getting her out of prison. There may be lessons to be learned there. This is the kind of rigor that we sort of expect our government to be um, showing. And as I mentioned, the Tice kids laid out the three priorities last in April. And let's go through those three and then talk a little bit about what we think has happened since we raised these up publicly and asked the government to look into them. So the first thing that the Tice kids asked was about Russia. Um, President Assad, and we'll talk about him in a minute, is in Russia, as is his brother Maher. And the Tice siblings ask that the United States government facilitate a meeting with Russia to try to obtain an opportunity for Mrs. Tice and Mr. Tice, if you would, to speak to the Assads and try to find out what they know about Austin. So far as we know, nothing has happened there. Deborah was not informed that this outreach had been made. Stand by, no detail. Yet we did make outreach and bring home another Marine from Russia, which is great. But we
Yeah.
we but we do not think that anything has been done on that request. And it's actually not, for reasons I'll explain in a minute, it's not as much of a priority as it was, but that was a key thing for us. It still is. We would like to speak to Assad. And the second country or area we were looking at um, uh, was Israel. And, Israel has the Mossad, the best intelligence agency in the region. And we were simply asking, could our government put the family, put Debra in contact um, with the equivalent of Spiha on the Israeli side? And that would be
Yeah,
an
the
yeah,
coordinator for the hostage and the missing. Yeah, we need to
that would be
engage with him.
yeah, that would be an email. Sending one email to somebody that we the government has worked with frequently. I mean, the United States was critical in bringing out all of those Israeli hostages. Um, in fact, Deborah, why don't you share about Steve, about Austin's case officer? What happened to him after October 7th?
Um, it was either October 8th or October 9th that he was sent to the region. I'm not exactly sure where he was. I think he was in Israel. And he did not return to the United States until the middle of January, except for 2 days that he was able to come home for a funeral. But all of the other things that happened between October and January, he was not at home. He was not in the United States.
You know, an ex
That's how determined we were to get those hostages freed.
an extraordinary level of service and diplomacy by that man, and he is one of the dedicated individuals that Deborah and I were talking about who were so great in government. And uh, please understand, Steve was Austin's lone case officer and Deborah's main point of contact with the U.S. government. And he was transferred because the priority was bringing back Israeli hostages, which we understand and which he dedicated himself to. All we're asking now is that that same courtesy, be extended to the Tice family, right? There are no more Israeli hostages. They're all accounted for, or God, thank God, many home and free. But Austin remains, and we believe the Israeli government certainly knows a lot about where he is and has the capacity to help find him. And so our government must press them. It begins with a simple phone call. They may be very willing to help. We need that to take place. And so I believe that after this was priority laid out by the Tice family, I believe that we did not hear anything from our government about what outreach they had done to the Israeli government. Certainly, Deborah, you've had no meeting, right?
No, no.
So, so there's plenty to do. These are just two of the priorities, and and the third one, and it's a difficult one, is Iran. For a number of reasons, we believe that Austin is held by the IRGC, that the facilities he was in Syria were controlled by the IRGC. And so the family asked that there simply be a diplomatic approach, even though it's difficult, to the government of Iran, the foreign ministry, saying, please help us by making an inquiry to the IRGC about Austin. We're not saying it's going to work. We're saying, please ask them, where is Austin? We'd like him back. And we believe this has not been done, although the United States government has pressed another case and was successful, thanks be to God, getting an American hostage out of prison in Iran just in this time frame. So we believe in the capability of the government. We just don't believe that they're taking proper initiative or that they have proper focus. And these are simple things 100% within our control. So the family would like to see action on these items. Sorry, Deborah, you want to add to that?
Well, I'm just thinking about, what actually is what's what press is it? Because, this started with Hillary Clinton in 2012, declining to get Austin home. And at that point, it would have been much easier. But somewhere along the line, day one, actually, every government, every part of our government has said, no, thank you. No, thank you. We're leaving that one. And, my son Jacob is now really wound up about what is the problem? What is the problem with the United States government bringing his brother home? Why? Why? Because it was quite possible from the very first day.
Right. So, you know, just again, it's been hard to find information about Austin, but the government does have a lot of information and shared it recently in volume with you. So we appreciate that. We have some more asks which will come later in the program related to that. But um, yeah, I mean, I think there seems to be a different urgency to this than we've seen on other cases. And we know it's been a long duration, but to me, that's the reason to have increased urgency. And 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 certainly since the fall of Damascus, we should have hyper increased urgency because now the situation that has been described for many years that there's little we can do because of our relations with Syria and so forth, none of that matters anymore. Now it's just a question of resources, priority, and finding Austin. And, I'm going to say just that in my observation, government works best, our federal government works best when the president is leading. And, we've had, if you want to count the two Trump terms, we've had four presidents working on this case and not showing the kind of leadership and focus that is required to send the signal to the government that this is a priority and this Marine needs to come home. And so we had, I don't know, was it a year and a half or 2 years with President Obama? That's where it started. We had 4 years of President Trump. We had 4 years of President Biden, and now we've had two more years of President Trump. And presidents must lead. And I very much appreciated in the first term some of the public things that President Trump said about Austin. And I think that what he's saying lately is not, I don't disagree with it, but it's not effective in terms of motivating his government to act. He keeps saying, we haven't heard from Austin for a long time, and Austin's got a great family, and all that's true, but it's not sending the signal to government that it's time to act. And I know he can do it, and I know he feels strongly about bringing Americans home. So we'd like to see more leadership from government.
Well,
Uh,
and that, that this is one of the things is that, you know, we haven't exhausted all the strategies that we have to bring him home. And in the first time that Trump was in office, the problem was Pompeo and Bolton because he was ready to make a phone call, send the plane, get him home.
yep.
And and it was his people, Trump's people, that were working against the president of the United States. And when these men wrote their books, they were proud of that.
They
There's
did.
some
They bragged.
problems here. Hmm.
Yes, Bolton
Yeah.
bragged in his book, and Pompeo, that they would distract the president when he was close to making direct contact, as he likes to do
Yes.
with leaders. So let me ask you this, Deborah. Right now, we have an extraordinary amount of uh, power and focus concentrated in one person in the government, and that's Marco Rubio. He's the Secretary of State. He's the head of the NSC. Uh, he has other jobs as well. He's pretty effective person in government. He's a good communicator. Um, my understanding is, so I know I have reached out, I think you have reached out to try to see if we could secure a meeting with Secretary Rubio since he's at the crossroads of so many of the vectors of power in government related to this kind of case. And when was the last time that you met with Secretary Rubio?
I haven't met with any of the secretaries of state except for
So,
Blinken at the very end at December 2024. That's the only time.
well, but you did speak with Pompeo on the phone, or you had some communication with him. And I'm not trying to defend him. I'm just saying it's pretty extraordinary that you're the mom of the longest held journalist hostage, a Marine, and that you're seeking a meeting, brief meeting with the Secretary of State just so you can talk to him about the case and some practical things that need to be done. And he's a very busy person. I understand that, but I find it extraordinary that there's been seemingly no effort to schedule this meeting.
No.
Um, I've asked directly. I've asked SPIHA, which is part of the State Department. That's an internal request, to get something on his calendar, 15 minutes when he's in DC. Um, this is how things start. This is not how they finish. This is where we should be. This is all within our control. It's not some shadowy foreign government that's keeping us from making progress. It's our own government is not meeting with Debra. And I mean, I'm asking again that happen. I think that's a key priority in terms of putting our government, to work and all pulling with the same or to get progress here for Austin.
Well, I
So
would
we look for,
also, oh, go
you
ahead.
go ahead. No, you go.
Well, I would like to meet with Jay Clayton and
For people who
ask,
don't know, please remind them who Jay Clayton is.
okay, so he's the new DNI taking Tulsi Gabbard's place. And Tulsi Gabbard, it was completely her idea. It was quite a surprise to me when we were sitting in the White House and she said, I want Austin's parents to see every single bit of intelligence about Austin Tice that we have, all of them, every intelligence agency. And we spent 2 days looking through that. And she had said very clearly that we could come back anytime we wanted to look at them again. We did not take advantage of that. But I'm hoping that DNI Clayton will pick up with that. And, it would be even more important now to see what kind of intelligence has been brought in since 2024. And,
Okay, so
go ahead. Yeah,
yeah, let's clarify for people. So you went in there in it was April or May of say 2025, I think it was, right?
April 2025. Yes.
And what did the government bring to show you?
All of it. And it was really interesting. There were 8 large binders, and there were some intelligence agencies that had balked, and uh, Tulsi Gabbard wouldn't put up with that. If they had intelligence about Austin Tice, bring it over. Bring it over. I'm the boss of it. Now, um, the one that was not included was the State Department. And
State
so,
Department did not comply.
well, they didn't have to because they weren't intelligence. So they weren't under DNI.
Okay.
And so they were very proud in bringing only completely, what do you call it?
Redacted.
Yeah, completely rejected.
They
Um,
sent a completely redacted binder to the meeting.
right. Um, but all of the other intelligence agencies were not able to say no or anything else. And as you
That's
can
it.
see, the sun still rose in the east. The country did not collapse. For this one family to know about our son and what could have been done in all those years for him.
Right, and it's very different than what you were being told by the government. Up until then, you were being told, "Oh, there's nothing much new. We don't have much." And then DNI Gabbert puts her foot down, and we see so much information then, and
Yeah,
in part, it's understandable because of how they gather information. They were not looking, is what I'm going to say. You can elaborate if you want, but they were not looking for Austin. They were not looking in the information for Austin specifically. They were looking for other things. And so I get why they missed it. What I don't get is why we weren't looking for Austin.
yeah. I, you know, it, if you have, if you don't think you have information, then wouldn't you be looking for information or just sitting back in your desk and going, nothing fell in my lap again today, you know?
Yes, you would be seeking, and that's what we're looking for is a forward, forward leaning, um, initiative based, solution based sense of urgency from the government. And again, we so appreciate a few individuals who are showing that kind of initiative, but we're really it's pretty clear they're being thwarted at a certain point or not listened to. Now in fairness to Jay Clayton, he was just confirmed. So, and we've just put the request through channels that the family be allowed to meet with him. So, for all we know, he's going to agree to this, and that would be fantastic. And I just want to draw the focus again to what's critical. So when you went there in April and you saw these binders, they dated up to the fall of Assad, right? Or up to the fall of Damascus. So you saw nothing that had been collected on uh, information from December 24 forward. Is that
Actually,
correct?
I think the closest we got was October of
Okay.
2024. Yeah.
Okay. So there are almost 2 years worth of information that has been collected since then, that is in the agencies, that has not been produced because there is no, I'm going to use the word client, asking for that information. So, that's the effort we're asking from Mr. Clayton is to uh, put forward a request to the agencies to develop reports about Austin since, the last time, so since October of 2024 forward. And that's the critical stuff. If I'm if I'm tasked with finding Austin, that's what I want. Not necessarily stuff from 2013, although I like anything from about Austin, but I want to see what we know since Damascus fell. And and they've got stuff, and I think the Israelis have stuff. And it's sitting in some bureaucratic computer file. And so, by the request to meet with the Israeli government and by this request to meet with Clayton, we're asking to be brought up to speed on where things are. It's a question the government itself should be asking. It should not have to be the family asking.
Right. But then we also have the issue, the whole idea about, are we, how are we looking for Austin? Right? Because we had a huge crash, I would call it, in October last year.
And
And
what's that?
the whole engagement with Osama Khan.
Yes. Yes. Well, go ahead. Do you want to say anything about that?
Well, our government went to talk to him, and as it turns out, it's quite likely that our government was basically sort of feeding him what they wanted to hear and then pressuring him to give it back to them the way they wanted to hear it. Um, and, finally twisted his arm to Austin was killed in 2013. And then they did a polygraph to find out that he was actually lying. And then later he said, yes, actually, I was lying. Um, but our government is not willing to publicly say that polygraph. They won't say it publicly that he was
Yeah.
lying. And then,
Yes. So
yeah.
we've asked
So,
the FBI to just put out a press release that says he was polygraphed and he failed the polygraph, because that would end a lot of the speculation. You know, Deborah's, you're so right. Like, I mean, there were hundreds of stories that said Austin was killed because this one guy said this, and he's a liar. He's been a liar his whole life, and he failed a polygraph test, and he was motivated. He was
mm,
motivated to lay all of this at the feet of Assad, which is what he did. And I'm not here to defend President Assad, right? But this man had a client, and that was Iran and possibly Russia, and he was there to divert all attention away from those two and toward Assad as being the one who was holding Austin responsible for Austin. Certainly, that was true initially in 2013, but it seems pretty clear the more we learn about it that Austin was held in IRGC controlled facilities, that if there wasn't Assad responsible, it was probably the brother Mahir, rather than President Assad. And, that's that clarifies a lot to understand that focus, and it's part of why we think it's critical that the U.S. be reaching out uh, to Iran. They're not a disinterested party in this. They are the critical party.
Right. Yes. And, you know, I believe right now, I mean, well, actually, I don't know, Bill, because of what you've told me about, uh, what's happened with Bashar and Maher Assad right now. So I
Yeah, we'll
don't know.
go through that.
Yeah.
Uh,
But I don't know
so,
how open Maher
okay.
would be to answer questions at this point. Um,
Well,
so
certainly
everything
difficult.
became more difficult December 2024. You know, we had had all those times, all that time to bring Austin home easily. And then as of December 2024, now it's very complicated and we hardly even know where to begin.
Yes, yeah, different situation, but
Absolutely.
hopeful in that, we're not pursuing the same strategy which wasn't working. Now we have a different and more complex problem, but something that I believe our government is up to in terms of its capabilities. It can find Austin. They can do this. It's will and its strategy and its focus. They have the resources. So let's talk about that news that you touched on. So this week, it was reported that there was a trial in Syria. I believe there was a total of maybe 9 people that were tried for war crimes. The headline on all of this was that one of them was President Bashar al-Assad, and the other was his brother Maher. And Maher was more important than to say he's Assad's brother. Uh, he was the head of the 4th Armored Division in Syria, and he was a general in the Syrian army, and he was the main point of contact for Iran with the Syrian government. And so we believe that, it's hard to say he directed IRGC forces in Iran. I think they directed themselves, but that responsibility, that reporting was through him. And so he would have been a key person in terms of knowing what was happening with Austin, including his exit from IRGC controlled facilities at or near the end of the Assad regime. And so, in this court case, which was a first in Syria, an open court case, under Assad regime, the court cases were very closed. We knew nothing about what was going on. Here, the judge has spoken openly to the press at the end of the event. He has talked about what happened, what the results were. Both President Assad and his brother Maher were subject to the death penalty in absentia. So the chances that they're going to be extradited from Russia, where they are currently, very, very low. Uh, although both brothers seem to be moving occasionally to UAE, only for brief visits. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on that, but it's unlikely they're going to be extradited. And there were others, 7 others, I believe, were convicted, some also with the death penalty. And so, yes, what your point, Deborah, was that Maher, who's this crucial person for us to hear from and talk to, um, is now facing uh, a significant jeopardy. And he must now be very, very careful and guarded about his language. And did so. This is what has happened. And I think maybe you had some things you wanted to share about this and your feeling about it, but yes or no?
Well, no, just that, you know, what Wait, May's helping me. So, um, well,
Well,
we have been looking for engagement with Bashar and Maher, but the more time passes, the less they can help us,
yes.
so, it's just everything is much more difficult because for one thing, the president of Syria and many of the people that are working for him, they don't know all the places of Damascus. They're not from that area. And so, if Austin was somewhere inside in that, and it is like practically all underground there. Um, so there can be a lot of movement happening down there that they're unaware of. That's entirely possible. And all the moving
Yes.
and those kind of things. And then that we've also heard people saying that it's possible that he's on the coast of Syria or that he was taken to Iran. But, now all of those things are a possibility. And we had so many years where it was around the corner. Whatever it was around the corner, you know? Um,
Yeah.
So we want to go and see the new information.
what?
So we want to go see the new information that's been accumulated.
Yeah,
makes it so
that's what we need. We need
Yes,
we need the
that
recent information.
right. That's why it's critical. I encourage everybody to read the AP story, and there's some other stories out there about what's happened in court in Syria this week. Um, I will just share with you. There's one paragraph that describes Maher Assad, the brother of the president, and it talks about his military command, and I mean it just mentions sort of three or four things that he was known for, and one is the last thing it says is in addition to running its own detention centers, right? So this is a key identifier for Mahir that he did. He was involved in the drug trafficking and he was involved in the 4th Armored Division. But also, one of the three or four things that they highlight about him is running a network of his own, it says, detention centers. This is what Debra was just referring to, right? She's saying it's a honeycomb of prisons in Syria, and it's not easy to navigate on purpose. It's on purpose that it's not easy to navigate. And we believe Austin was in this network that Maher controlled and that was staffed by IRGC. And so, you know, this is an absolutely critical point and why we need the most current information that is available. I, I wanted to share one last thing about that story, if we have time, and that's please understand how extraordinary it is for the Syrian people that there's a first trial of government officials. It's the first opportunity for them to feel that there's justice. So many people are lost and missing in Syria. It's not just Austin Tice. There's thousands and tens of thousands of Syrians. This is a huge problem. Almost anyone you'd stop on the street in Syria would know somebody, if not a family member, a neighbor, would know somebody that they're looking for. So it's a countrywide massive problem, and it starts with bringing some justice a justice process, okay? So I made a couple of calls this week into the region, one to a highly trusted, very sharp journalist, asking, how do we find out if anything was said in open court about Austin Tice? Because the government would have had to make a case and bring documents, and the defense would have to make an argument and have some documents. And I want to know what was submitted and what was said. And he said, great question. He's gonna work on that, but for his own purposes, but also to help, which is the best kind of journalism. And then I also made a contact to a very high government/law enforcement person asking the same thing. And what I'm going to say is we don't know what was said in open court yet. What we do know is it's the first time there's been an open court to look at atrocities and bring justice. Things are just beginning now in Syria, right? That can be revelatory about Austin and about the whole process, and for so many Syrians. And so we need to be paying attention to these things as a government if we want to solve this problem. Where is Austin?
Yeah.
Austin was being held by the highest levels of government, and here was a trial about the atrocities of the highest level of government. And we want to know what documents were submitted and what was said. So to me, the only thing that's exciting is finding Austin and bringing him home. But in terms of the investigation, this is terribly interesting and a very big opportunity. And we appear to be sleeping on this and not aware of the significance of it.
That's been going on for 14 years now. And some of it has actually been, you know, like make sure you keep your hands over your eyes because we don't want to know anything about it. So, I mean, that's how I have felt often about our government. The most important thing is don't be informed.
Quite so. And when we put a fine point on it, like you did with Bashar al-Assad and the government, I want everybody to understand that Debra and Mark, the Tice family, has asked the government to provide transcripts of the interview with Bassam Hassan. Those transcripts were created by our government, paid for by taxpayer dollars. They're in English and in Arabic, and these transcripts have not been provided. In fact,
No.
an answer has not been provided, right, to Debra. Not even the courtesy of an answer. You can't have that because of XYZ problem. No response from the government about, may I have the transcript of the time this person declared that my son had been killed? How did he say that? What was the follow-up? What were the questions? This has not been provided by the government to the Tices. It's extraordinary as far as I'm concerned. So here's what I'm going to say. We can do a lot better. There's nothing but opportunity for us out there. And I think what was shown in April when we had the Tice kids come on and make presentations was that right after that, we heard from a very dedicated researcher who's traveled to Syria 19 times, Arabic speaker. She had some leads she wanted to share and discuss with us. We heard from a US-owned, Israeli-based news organization whose reporter had some interactions that they wanted to share with us. New information is coming forward all the time. New new leads that are being generated by the family and the family's activities. And some of them are really substantive and encouraging. And I expect we're going to get some today. Uh, but we really need a better partner in the government. We need a government that's rolling up its sleeves and getting to work and focusing on bringing this American home. And I know they can do it. I know they can do it, but they need to provide transcripts. They need to provide, information. They need to have a courtesy to have a meeting with the Secretary of State. They need to have the president talking the right way. They need to get Jay Clayton, the new DNI, to make information available. There's a ton of controllable things. They need to reach out to the Iranian government and ask for Austin's return. They need to introduce the family to the Israeli government. Tell us what you know. Let's start a dialogue. That should have been started 14 years ago. So here we are. And yet I'm going to say we have some really interesting things happening to look forward to that are happening now. We just heard that the BBC is going to come out with a podcast. We're very excited about that. It's, I think, September 8 or 9. They've been working on it for a couple of years. So we're extremely encouraged by this work that is being done by BBC and Josh Baker, and also mentioning that they made a partnership with PBS so that the program will be heard in the U.S. on, sorry, not PBS, NPR. NPR. The program will be heard on NPR throughout the country. So that's big, and we're really grateful for the kind of journalism that moves the story forward, that uses facts, that finds documents, that advances things. And so we're looking forward to that coming in September. And I know also that sometimes journalism which promotes stories that are incomplete or that are invasive of the family's privacy are difficult and have a toll. And I don't talk with Debra every day, but I talk with her very often. And we lost her. We lost you, Debra, for a few months because of some of that, some of what you had to sort through. Can you just talk about that, the impact on your family of some of the journalism that was not helpful?
Right. And, you know, like you're talking about, Sonia Smith and Josh Baker, the way that they use a lot of time to make sure that they're getting it right. And, when they hear something big, they want to see what are all the little pieces that make that so big. And they take the time to do that. And what we experienced was go to talk to one person that has already been called a liar and to believe what he says and then to put that out globally that Austin Tice has been dead for years. And then he has 6 siblings that are now being, even if it's the kindest thing, even if someone is sending you flowers, even if someone is sending you a card, you aren't there. That isn't true. There's no reason for us to think that Austin is dead. And so I have these children that are, turned upside down after all these years of not being turned upside down, going on, not going on, but being capable moving forward with their lives at the same time, as you said, they can step in and talk for their brother anytime, right? And they love him to the moon and back. He's alpha in our family. And so when I got so sick, it was the doctors that said it's a trauma. It's a trauma thing. You know, you experience it physically, but it came to you emotionally. And, you know, it wasn't until the end of last month that I was freed from all that. And all the rest of that time, you know, I have just been unable to do anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Oh, your travel was restricted. You couldn't really eat, as I remember. I mean, it was terrible. And
I
and yeah,
lost so much weight.
you
I
had
thought I was
taken
just
a lot
gonna,
of this. You'd taken a
yeah,
lot of this yourselves. You primarily, but you and Mark and the kids had not. Um, and this is the first time you'd really watched it affecting them as their friends called and you know condolences and I mean
yeah,
just it was just all this affirmation of this story which was single sourced by a guy who's a liar, which the government proved through its polygraph.
exactly.
So it was
So,
terrible and there's nothing you can do. Really, that's probably that all internalized for you.
yeah, yeah. But it wasn't, you know, for me, it wasn't just about Austin. It was really about not being able to take long walks, you know,
Yeah,
not willing to go far away from my home, far away being 2 hours. Yeah, you
yeah.
know,
Yeah,
for this entire time, I was just tied down in my home.
you were not healthy, and it
No.
was, not a, it's not a good situation. And so,
Yeah.
unable to travel means, unable to try to follow some of these leads, right? And I
Yes.
think what we really saw happen there, and I'm not trying to pile on here, but what we really saw happen here is in the absence of the family's activity, and you have a little network around you as well, but in the absence of that, um, there's not much being done by the government, right? So the situation really didn't advance.
No, it really didn't. And just absolutely, you know, it wasn't just Austin. It was all of my children. And, you know, I wasn't even capable of doing Christmas things, buying Christmas presents, decorating for Christmas. None of that happened. I didn't cook a single thing. I just did not have the capability, just
Yeah.
too whipped. And so, you know, now we're getting back into, you know, that. And I am very eager to get across the ocean and into some things that I want to find out and see and people I want to see. And it's looking like I'm on my way to that. So that's really a good thing. But these months have been lost in a way that's very heartbreaking. Yeah,
Yeah. We didn't have the time to give. And, but something, you needed the rest. And I know that everybody on here joins me in having joy that you're feeling better and that you're strong now and that, hopefully we can, go back to making some progress, bring Austin home.
I
And
certainly hope so. Yes,
I,
yes.
I want to say another word of praise for your kids because they did during that time, they did fill in. And I know Naomi's with us. Just today, she's written, a piece in the Washington Post Press Freedom newsletter. Naomi, can you just share with us, like, what that was about and why you felt compelled to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to say thank you to Jason Rezaian and the Washington Post for giving us the opportunity to kind of talk from a more personal place about what the experience of having Austin missing for 14 years has been like. So today we're talking about, the commemoration of 14 years of detainment. But within the same week, we always are also celebrating Austin's birthday. So August is a very intense month for our family. Um, and there's just a lot of reflection that I think comes up during this time. And as Austin is turning 45 this year, there's just been a lot of thought about what has these last 14 years, what have been taken from him and what has been taken from our family. There's no way to get that back, right? There's no way to get back Austin getting to experience his nieces and nephews as they're, little kids, the birthdays, the Christmases, all those kinds of pieces. But I think what y'all have really been highlighting today is the opportunities that exist to make sure that Austin doesn't continue to miss those milestones. There are so many strategies that have not been explored, which I think, you and mom have really highlighted. And in all of this, that is something that we continue to focus on, and that is something that we continue to push for. Yes, Austin has been detained for a long time. There is no undoing that. What can we do to get him home today?
Yeah, we're
Uh,
not going to be mourning all the years that he's been gone. We want to focus on today. What can we do for Austin today? Oh my goodness. Here's the list. You know,
yeah,
plenty of things, lots of
yeah.
things that can be done to bring Austin home. And so, and these guys are glued, and that was just a huge part of this whole thing since October, because all of this time they have been glued to Austin's coming home. Mom, what do we need to do? How do you want us to help? And it was so often I said, I want you to build your life because that is what Austin wants to see when he comes home. And that they were always stood ready.
Yeah, and they did that. And I've learned that just in working with Naomi and her brothers and sisters. I mean, they are each one is an extraordinary person. They have built great lives, interesting careers. They have not let this, defeat them. And so they're warriors in this, and I'm so happy to have them. Now they've developed talents and skills. And look, Naomi's writing in the Washington Post. I mean, this is when this started. When Austin was taken, you were what, 15 years old, right?
It was a little older than that. I think I was 19 or 20. But I think,
Okay,
Bill, what we have to focus on too is that Austin is an extraordinary individual and he has had 14 years of his life taken from him. So I
yeah.
think all of us siblings feel a certain amount of expectation that when he comes back, we want to be able to demonstrate how we have lived our lives to the fullest while he has been unable to, right? I think that's
Hmm.
something that we very much owe to him. And it's something that we think about a lot in this piece and thinking about what's happened to mom over this last almost a year has really just highlighted the importance of good journalism. And I think that is our ask to everyone listening to this now is to really be that investigative reporter who can help us bring Austin home.
And I just have to tell you this little side story this is a side story, everybody. So when Austin was taken, Naomi was going back to school, and she had chosen to live up there so that she could be close to Austin. She was going to be in Virginia and he's in DC. So Mark and I reached out to the school and told them what was going on, and they gave us three different ways that, Naomi could be okay at school and, take the whole semester off or whatever she needed to do. And we didn't talk to her at all about that. We talked to them and we got all this stuff together. And then we reached out to Naomi and we said, well, we've talked to the school and here are some options she has. And she's like, what? Are you kidding? I wouldn't do anything. Can you? Okay, Austin comes home and I say, hey, dude, I got a, semester ride. He would choke me. No, Mom, no. I'm here at school and I'm going to do my best. And she did. She did really well the whole entire time that Austin wasn't there for her. But she was definitely,
Yeah, there is no other option, definitely. When you have Austin as an older brother, he sets a very
He's
high bar. So it's
he's a
something that,
doer. Yeah.
yes, we constantly have to strive for and want to hear his opinion on, what we've done with the last 14 years. We might not like it, but we're certainly interested in hearing it and having the opportunity to hear that directly.
yeah.
That's so great. And what a great way to both of you to articulate that. I felt this, but it's really interesting to hear it and hear it from your hearts. A year ago we got together and we spent a day, 8-hour day on the 14th, in bringing in people from all over the world and all over the country to talk about what they knew about the case and what they thought. And everyone seemed to really like that. And so did I. I didn't like that it was in August because, half the people can't come because they're away, they have plans. So we're going to do that again, late September, early October. And we hope by then we know about the BBC work. We hope by then Jay Clayton has provided the Tices with the latest information and they'll be able to talk a little bit about some of the unclassified information. We hope by then Debra may have traveled possibly to the region and has a report to bring back on some of the leads that have emerged because of our engagement with the audiences. We hope journalists will have used this time to complete more of their projects. We think we'll have a lot of interesting aspects to report on. And most importantly, we're going to be talking about the 3 things we've asked the government to do and to tell you all what progress has been made. Has the government sent a letter to the Foreign Ministry of Iran saying, please release Austin? Has our government made a meeting with the coordinator in Israel so the family can meet and talk to them about what they know about Austin? And has the new DNI shown the most current information to the family that's been gathered since October? If we can accomplish these 3 things before we next do our all-day meeting on Austin in late September, early October, that will be a fantastic outcome. But it's before the government now. They have plenty to do. We expect a meeting with Secretary Rubio. That's easy. That can be done. So stay tuned. Read Naomi's article in the Washington Post. Join us when we meet again in the fall. Wish Debra the best as she travels forward. Keep working hard. Keep the focus on Austin. Use your representatives, to make progress with the federal government. And we hope the president leads on this. We know his heart is there, and we hope he
Yeah.
leads.
Yeah.
Debra, any last words before we sign off?
I guess I would want to say a good journalist is a great thing. Very, very important in our government, in our homes, in our families around the world. Good guys, good women are great people. Very, very necessary.
Agree 100% on that, 1,000%. And just, you'll find it. You'll look and see some of what's going to be written about today and about Austin on the anniversary. Journalists are going to make this happen by putting pressure on the government and by doing their own investigations. And we're grateful to each one of them. They're doing things that Austin would have done for somebody himself. So thank you all for joining us today. Naomi, thank you so much. And to all your Sibs. Debra, always great to talk to you. We've got important work before us. Look forward to talking to you again in September.
Thanks for the
you,
support,
Beth.
Bill. Thank you
You bet.
so much. Thank you.
Okay.